I'm Lauren Tocci.
And I'm Ryan Tocci. Lauren, are you ready for some football?
I'm just mad at you right now.
I feel like right off the start, you and I are coming at this with very different energies this episode.
If you're familiar with 90s animated classic Daria, that's my vibe today. I'm like reaching for the volleyball, but not really.
And I'm like 90s high school athlete Ryan, like jacked up, let's go.
I'm jacked up on Mountain Dew.
Lauren, it's Super Bowl weekend.
It is Super Bowl weekend.
The Green Bay Packers versus the Buffalo Bills. Here we go.
Shh, podcast audience, don't tell him about what actually is happening on Sunday.
Is it the Buccaneers or the Buffalo Bills? Yay!
Seriously, podcast audience, he's super delusional about this. Just play
it's the Buccaneers and the Chiefs.
No one cares about the Super Bowl on Sunday. I've declared it. I have decided as a nation we don't care about this matchup.
Nah, I'm back to it. I'm okay. I don't know how much I care about the game, but I'm excited to watch it. I had about 3 days that I pouted after the Bills lost, and I went...
Pouted? You were sullen.
Not watching the game.
You really did. You boldly declared for the first time in your life you were not going to watch the Super Bowl, and I thought, this won't last, but it's scary that he's saying it.
I thought it, and then, week went past. Maybe that's why they have that 2-week gap now for those of us that are fans that we can recover.
So you can get back on board.
We can get back on board.
I also felt like what was going to really pull you back in was the fact that you could have another weekend of like tailgate football themed food.
Can't argue there. That's what I'm that guy now. Like I'm there for the commercials. I'm there for the food guy.
Yeah, and I mean honestly the immaculate cuisine of Tampa Bay is really giving me a wealth of things that I can pull from this weekend.
Kansas City barbecue, but that's fine.
Yeah, Danielle Andrews, I am not. My menu is going to be if you want some chips and dip and maybe some mildly reheated wings, I've got you covered. However, I do love coming up with a themed cocktail recipe, and I shall be doing so for this episode. You may have noticed I did this for our previous episode 7, and I think this is maybe a new territory we're going to be opening up for the podcast.
You got a good cocktail to go right with 7? You couldn't go wrong with that.
It does seem like a weird movie to make like a...
It was a damn good drink, though.
Thank you. I was very proud of that one.
That's the thing. Over quarantine, you have become a really good mixologist.
Thank you. I don't know that I'm good... But I pour heavy. So I think...
If I drink too, I'm like, these are the best drinks ever.
That's the strategy, folks. Just put a lot of booze in it and some fruit juices. So, so I'm going to be doing a recipe this week. Check out our Instagram at How Could You Podcast to see the cocktail that pairs with our episode this week, where we're going to be talking about, I'm sure you could have figured out, Football movies.
Yes, we are gonna focus in right on football, and that's it, not sports. But everybody, even if you're not a football fan, a lot of people love sports movies.
Oh, there's nothing like a good sports movie.
Yeah, and even football films, like people get really into them, and they're like, they could care less about Sundays, but you get a good football movie or a good any sports movie, and they are engrossed and they love it, and everybody comes out generally pumped up.
Yes, and feeling like the power of being involved in sports makes a lot more sense. You really get to go on some emotional journeys, and a lot of times, even when it doesn't end well, like when the big game isn't won, at least you kind of get to see people like attempt something towards their dreams in very reasonable ways, and oftentimes with like a lot of personal and emotional growth. So it's always like really fun to watch a football movie. It always makes you cry a little bit.
Generally a good sports movie should have all of that. A little bit of laughter, a little bit of cry, a good feel-good moment. Yeah.
A montage.
You
have to have a good sports montage.
Yes. Music is so key, right?
Oh, completely. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of films, a lot of genres of film, you can talk about like where the music becomes key, but you need that right song, a quick cutting montage. It makes you feel like... Or a good
score. One of the two. Yes, you gotta have one of the two.
It makes you feel like you're in it.
Before we get started, though, into the actual films themselves, let's know your world of football. Like, how'd you come into it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you have a team? What's your feeling on it?
So I am nowhere near as devoted of a football fan as you are. I grew up in a household that loved football, season ticket holders for the New York Football Giants since the 70s. Very, very devoted fans of the Giants. And I loved football for the atmosphere was really my interaction with it, because I liked the food, the revelry. I didn't really go to a lot of football games until I was in high school, when that was like kind of the Friday night activity. You walk around the track, you kind of watch the game, you know, like the whole thing. Like football at Becca was a big deal. As a lot of high schools, it's a very big deal. So that was kind of my interaction, and I liked college football. I loved rooting for Notre Dame, Fighting Irish. So that was I didn't really have, though, like a huge team. My family was, still are, very big fans of the Giants. And then you and I started dating, and it was kind of, I don't know, I felt like it was necessary. I needed to learn more about it. I say this in the most loving way. You were pretty intense about it in a really loving way.
At a very heightened time of the fandom, I won't lie.
Because I'll never forget, because like, and this is, you know, my interests are multi and varied, and I always loved sport. I loved soccer. I loved ice hockey, and I loved watching football games, but I never really invested time into understanding the sport.
It's funny, though, because you talked about Becca, which is your high school, Bethlehem Catholic. So you went to a Catholic school with a great football team. So it's surprising that you didn't get more into it because of that.
I was into it because, like...
Because I think they were really good at that time,
yeah,
right?
They were. It was kind of in the golden age, no pun intended. We're the golden
high
age,
school
so,
football.
Yeah, so it's... here's the thing. I was into it as far as, like, if... And it's kind of like a lot of sports with me. If I'm there, I am very much someone who gets sucked into the atmosphere of it, but I'm not devoted. If you put on a game, I'll get sucked in. But I won't ever seek it out myself. Like, right. I enjoy it when I'm in the situation. So
you came into my life, and that was the height of our... So my history with football is a little funny. So actually, and this is why I love the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl. I actually got really into it because of the Super Bowl.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I'm sure I watched games before, but the biggest ones I remember is the Cincinnati Bengals 49ers Super Bowl. And I was so hooked after that, and I became a football fan, became a Buffalo Bills fan. Just randomly, you know? My family was, my parents were Eagles fans, so we always had that fandom. My dad was awesome. He always rooted for the Eagles.
You mean the Beagles?
The Beagles, yes. So, you know, growing up, we had two favorite teams. So, and then we actually ended up having season tickets for the Eagles. So, as long as they weren't playing, I was as huge an Eagles fan as I was a Bills fan, and I still do root that hard for the Eagles.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's just the Bills are my heart, right? Like,
oh no, and everybody knows me. You have the heart on your sleeve.
You came into my life, and we were season ticket holders for the Eagles, like, all in, and here comes this Giants family.
I honestly, I didn't fancy myself a rebellious teenager, but I think the moment I started rooting for the Eagles was the most rebellious thing I ever did.
I always love, though, your dad and your brothers, you know, bond and the love for the Giants, and it was cool. Thing. Like, you know, I know I'm not into the whole rivalry thing.
Except the Cowboys. The Cowboys suck always.
But yeah, so that's kind of our backgrounds with football, and since then, you know, it stayed with it every Sunday, and always been kind of that.
It's a fun structure for the fall, and I always remember, like, very fondly, we would go to Rookies, and I wouldn't understand plays, so you would, like, take out, like, the salt and pepper shakers and the ketchup and explain to me how football works.
Rookies Sports Bar, you mean?
Yeah,
yes.
Rookies Sports Bar. And, you know, it's a fun atmosphere to be around. The Super Bowl feels like a really lovely event. Like, normally for us, we're starting to focus on awards season during this time, so, like, I find it to sometimes be this perfunctory distraction.
Yes, since being with you, I've become more of a fan, I think, of the Oscars.
You get really jacked up for the Oscars, though.
But, you know, all fun. Like, you and I we don't miss a beat to find something to celebrate. So,
well, that's the truth.
We're all in. So
we like a good event, and I love the event of the Super Bowl. I like the coverage all day. I like how excited you get. I know how much the Super Bowl means to you, and the connection you have with your dad with the Super Bowl. So it's like it's always fun to get to watch you be like a kid that whole week.
That was always our dream. Our big bucket list was always, you know, quote unquote, was going to be go to the Super Bowl. Like, we always wanted to do that.
And I fear for our bank account the day the Bills make it to the Super Bowl.
Yes. So, but that's that. Not everybody's a football fan. We know that.
But a lot of people are fans of football movies, as you had mentioned at the top of the show.
So that kind of brings us into the show this week. And it's going to be a little more of your clip show, just talking about different, you know, football films throughout history and kind of our favorites.
Yes,
right?
Our favorites. Not necessarily the best. Right. Not a deep dive into the history. Just some films maybe to check out this weekend to get you hyped up for the Super Bowl.
Just the ones that connect with us for whatever reason, and we have favorites, and we will put on and just really love, and we hope everybody else checks them out, right? I mean, most of these I'm sure most people have seen. And like all of our shows, spoilers up front, we will be talking about these movies in depth, so, you know, if you hear a movie that you haven't seen and want to, maybe just skip past that part so you don't get anything spoiled while we talk about it.
So Ryan, how are we going to choose who goes first?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, the only thing you can do to start who's going to go first is your ceremonial coin toss. And like every good Super Bowl, we have a very special person to come in and flip the coin. Vice President Dan Quayle is here on the How Could You podcast.
What is wrong with you?
No, he's not here?
No, he's not here. He's not here, Ryan.
So I guess I'm stuck flipping the coin.
Go ahead.
But yes, we're going to go. What we did was we actually went and drafted our teams.
Yes.
So you'll notice there's no overlap, and that was intentional. So we do know what we're going to be talking about a little bit. We just don't know how we're going to, we'll get into the conversations from there. But we didn't want to, have 3 of the top same favorite films, so we ended up drafting out and going and saying, hey, this is going to be, I'm going to pick this one, then you pick this one, and we kind of went back until we had our top 5 each. And so, yeah, we're going to go with that and decide who goes first with their number 1 draft pick film. We're going to do the coin toss here. So, Lauren?
Well, wait, so do I get to call it because my team's been to the Super Bowl the most recently?
Actually, we're going to flip the coin here. All right, you call it in the air?
Yeah. Heads.
Tails it is. You know what?
Upset.
We're going to defer to the second half.
Oh, no.
We're going to kick the ball.
I'm curious who had the prop bet on this.
Yeah. I also had a nice Texas coin, which I feel is very fitting here.
It really is. Wait, so if you're kicked, does that mean I go first?
Yeah, Sports. You're going to go first.
Sports. So we decided...
You can tell that we've really thought all this out.
We really talked this one out. So for our list, what we're going to do is we're going to start with our number 1s instead of holding them to the end. So my number 1 favorite football movie is the 2000 classic, Remember the Titans.
Whoa, we just got into that, huh?
Yeah.
No build-up.
No build-up.
Like,
you don't need that with
no national anthem? No God Bless America?
I don't know if you guys have noticed, he's really committing to the theme of the episode. In a way in which we did not prepare, so I am not ready. I don't have the vibrato to sing the national anthem.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.
So
let's go back to this. All right.
I will go back to
on the clock. Lauren Tocci, with the first pick of this How Could You podcast number 1 film. It is
the film I already said. Remember the Titans.
Hey!
There are 1,000 reasons why. First off, I just love this movie so much. It's. And listen, it does the Disney thing where it is based on a true story, but we know a lot of liberties are taken because it's obviously a film, and then that's going to be quite a theme with some of the films I'll talk about. But I just love it. It's feel good. There to me is no more inspirational or person I would want to follow into battle than Coach Boone, played by Denzel Washington. It's a story that has to deal with a lot of layers in terms of, because of the time period set in, dealing with segregation, dealing with prejudice. And it's a movie that really approaches it from a few different dynamics, from family dynamics, interpersonal relationships of the students involved, the different approaches to it, the bravery, that's associated with, walking into environments that are going to be adversarial. And to me, it really comes down to one scene. And it's the scene where Coach Boone wakes them up in the middle of the night or the wee hours of the morning and makes them run to Gettysburg. To me, there is nothing like that scene. And I used to, so in my first few years of teaching, homecoming week is such a big deal in high schools. And I would, the day of the pep rally, we would watch Remember the Titans, because I just felt like everyone's so hyped up for the pep rally to begin with, and it all has to do with sports. And to me, what better movie to put on, because the story is so amazing. It's so inspirational. The relationships that are built, and there are a lot of sad moments in this movie, like we talked about at the top of this. You want kind of that emotional resonance throughout, but you leave it inspired. You leave it with joy. It's funny. There were a lot of great kind of ways in which the side characters are built so they don't feel one-off, but you feel like they've been kind of given their due.
Oh, yeah.
There's obviously the closer focus stories, the relationship between the coaches, It's honestly, it's an amazing, amazing movie. I could put it on at any time. It just makes me feel good. And to me, it's a perfect sports movie. It's everything I want in a sports movie, period. And without a doubt, it's my favorite football movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the movie that we would have agreed on the most, I think, with our draft. And you fought, like, no questions, like, I am getting this. You were like, put it down, and I couldn't argue with that.
I may not have done the episode. I may not have done the episode if you didn't let me
But
know.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. It's a fantastic film. Denzel Washington is amazing. I love Will Patton as Coach Yost. I think he is just awesome in the film. So both of those men and how they come together and they coach, like, I'm like with you. Like,
well, there's that great line that Coach Yost has when the boys are like, well, we're, trying to like stand up for him. He's like, don't do this. Like, and you can tell like he doesn't, there's a really like true sense of like, like the dynamics of leadership and how impactful leadership is in changing young minds and making them kind of like open up and understand and kind of come out with a better understanding and like and I love the thing I love about Coach Yost and Coach Boone is they don't have the same ways of leading.
No, exactly.
And that's something that's it's a really cool dynamic of showing like kind of that collaboration. And I obviously I've been a debate team coach, but I've never been an athletics coach. And so, but I really love that relationship. I love that interplay. There's just so many cool things. And I mean, it just hits you with all the feels.
Yeah, Denzel, it's probably his best role. I mean, let me rephrase that. Favorite role.
Yes.
Because he's so good. Again, kind of talking about Will Patton, his relationship with his daughter is so well done throughout the movie, and Hayden Panettiere is excellent in it.
Yeah.
And then you just start talking about, like what you said, all these supporting actors in it.
Yes.
I mean, everybody is so good in it. I mean, you got Ryan Gosling at his earliest, who's hilarious.
He's so funny.
He's really funny. But that's kind of, you said about that, with the funny aspect of it. Because to me...
So the terms cruel and unusual punishment mean nothing to you. That's the other thing. I could quote that movie for days.
Yeah, the summer, or the training camp part of it is probably the best.
Yeah.
And that's where you're getting your montages. That's where you're getting your humor, but also your strife. So
Ethan Suplee is great in
Ethan
it.
Suplee is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Sunshine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
you got good music throughout.
Yeah, it's really great music. It's a great soundtrack for the 60s. It's a great movie. It's a great sports movie. A great movie, period.
And it's definitely Disney-fied.
Yeah, the story obviously is altered.
Who cares?
But, yeah, I don't know.
That's what I want. But yeah, so, I mean, anything else you want to talk about? Remember the Titans?
No, I think honestly we've covered it. Like, it's a great sports movie. And certainly, I think if we were doing a full episode about this, we would get into a lot of the details. And I think a lot of these films have really interesting production histories, why they become so significant, why they kind of stand the test of time, why they're the best explication of, like, sports films. But I think today's going to be an all passion, all guts kind of story, which is the Super Bowl you would have gotten if the Buffalo Bills were in it. You're welcome for that.
Hammering that one home, I appreciate it.
But I think what makes it a really successful film, is even a longer conversation. What makes it a great sports movie is, I think, the things we've already highlighted. So what's your number one?
Okay, and we should, just to clarify, and I think it's been known, but these are our favorites. So we're going backwards on this. Usually we go from our least to our favorites. Not least, but the lower.
Like the lower
yeah,
end,
but these are our top ones. We just wanted to get those number one picks right out of the bat. My number one, and I went back and forth between two with what was going to be my number one, and I already know that this is going to be a discussion, but Varsity Blues.
I'm going to say at this point in the conversation, it's like going to a Michelin star restaurant and then stopping at Wendy's on the way home. That's what this conversation did.
Which just sounds awesome, just for the record. Like, I totally would go. Varsity Blues. Okay, I gotta say it up front. There is things that lead. This is going to be a when you watch it type of film, probably. But this movie is everything that I want out of a sports movie. It's ridiculous. It gets you pumped up. It's got great music. It's got quotable lines.
Oh, it's quotable.
It's so quotable.
Uh-huh.
Our friend John and I, the other week, were literally text messaging back all morning, just quotes from the movie. Okay, so to be fair, I was a senior in high school when this came out. It's about a high school that's blue and white. My team was blue and white. I knew Jonathan Moxon. I did. You've
known James Vanderbeek this entire time?
No, I had a friend, a good friend, really great friend, and he was a friend of all of us, and he was the quarterback of the team, going to the Ivy League college, very charming, boyish, like, he was the Mox. Like, and then you would just have this movie. I mean, I know you're gonna trash it here in a moment for its problematic aspects, but I just love this movie.
Listen, here's the thing. Because we are not doing some deep dive into Varsity Blues, I will keep my criticism to a minimal. And here's the thing I'll say. I loved this movie too when it came out. I was a huge fan of Dawson's Creek, which is a shock to no one who's probably listening to this. So I, of course, saw this movie, loved this movie, and it was, for a 90s movie, it had kind of everything. It does not age well, but at that, it is very much a teenage movie of its time, and that movie and that soundtrack, they were iconic. God.
You get your montages with Foo Fighters playing.
Hero.
Yeah, Hero.
Forget it, yeah.
Or even the Thunderstruck is great.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's the thing. Like, Tweeter, hilarious, but... and they even say it, like, he's gonna go to jail. Like, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I had a kid on my wrestling team, definitely was Tweeter. So we all know that guy.
Tweeter's awful and hilarious at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love Billy Bob when Billy Bob has to go through that emotional journey?
The Billy Bob stuff is scary.
It is scary, especially nowadays. Now what we know about football.
And I'm assuming John Voight wasn't acting. I think that's just John Voight.
Stick to the basics. Stick to the basics. Oh my God, I could just quote that movie all day.
I know you could. And don't get me wrong. Like, again, anything I'm saying negative towards it, it's some of the cringier parts of it. But in terms of like a sports movie, it's fun. Oh gosh, what are you?
I don't want your laugh.
I don't want your laugh.
All right, so
Vanderbeek's southern accent
is a little rough.
Questionable.
And yes, okay, is it a little absurd when we have the attractive wallflower teacher turn out to be the stripper? Is a little bit ridiculous.
A little bit tossy. Little bit.
We have the whipped cream bikini, iconic.
Sure.
Without the whipped cream bikini, though, we would not have gotten Chris Evans in the whipped cream bikini in Not Another Teen Movie. So,
all right, never mind. I forgive the movie now. I forgive the movie. And the thing is like, even as I'm trying to mildly dunk on this movie, I liked this movie in the 90s and early 2000s, so I can't even say, and it's very funny, and I could quote it right back to you. Like, but it's just really funny that's your...
with Jonathan Moxon, one of my all-time
Don't talk about this
favorite...
like it's a journey. Stop it.
But I have to say, so it's written by, we talked about, the same guy that wrote Point Break,
yes.
Which was funny. I actually just found out, I did not realize this. It's directed by the gentleman by the name of Brian Robbins. And this is going to be one of those quick facts that no one's going to care about but me. I had no idea. He played Eric on the TV show Head of the Class.
Oh my gosh, you were literally just watching this show the other day.
This has blown my mind. So I don't know who remembers the 80s TV show Head of the Class, but the director for Varsity Blues was him, and it is just fantastic. He also directed Hardball and Ready to Rumble. He's had some strange movies.
It's a mixed bag, but that's okay. Everyone's got, range? No, let's not call it range.
But listen, I will fully admit, no, this movie is flawed beyond belief, and it is a very much, again, of the time, like, it just came out at a time, it hit me, it is so nostalgic for it.
Listen, you don't have to defend your movie, love your movie.
Oh, I love my movie.
I know you love
I love my movie, warts and all.
It's got warts. Okay, so do we want to move into number 2 picks?
Yes.
Wait, so now are you deferring? Does that mean you take it now? Or
No,
is that
it's
later?
getting back to
all right. Oh, you were just doing a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number 2 movie is The Little Giants.
Yeah.
1994, directed by Dwayne Dunham, who, I didn't know this, he also directed Halloween Town, which I know people get very nostalgic about that film, put it in line a lot with like Hocus Pocus is like kind of like great classic like Halloween movies. He also directed Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. You've never seen Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey?
I was giving you that look.
Why do you hate animals so much?
I don't hate animals.
That movie...
I just don't need to see a 2-hour movie about an animal.
That movie is so sweet, and it makes me cry, and it's like, that's an actual journey. That's a real journey. So anyways, but The Little Giants, like, I love this movie. I love a good, like, misfits story. Like, anything where it's a group of, like, scrappy kids who don't seem to have a shot, shouldn't be in league. And if you don't know this, so the movie is about, a Pee-wee football team called the Little Giants. Their big adversaries are the Cowboys, because the Cowboys are evil. And it's just, like, this great... It's Rick Moranis. How do you not love Rick Moranis? Nothing ever is
bad with Rick Moranis.
No, everything is made better by his presence. And I loved it because... Like, when I was growing up, I loved Icebox. Like, Icebox was everything. Like, she was, like, such an icon in my youth. And I just loved... It was such a funny movie. It's so sweet. And it gave us Devon Sawa.
It did.
Never gonna complain about that. Like, Devon Sawa looms large in, like, my adolescence. And, like, I love that movie. You were talking about earlier, like, the relationship in Remember the Titans, like, the father-daughter relationship and that. I love the one in The Little Giants. Because, like, there's nothing about Rick Moranis that immediately screams, he's going to be the guy to rally these kids to have a winning football team. But It happens... And I love how it happens. And I remember, like...
because you got Ed O'Neill just being his slimiest.
Ed O'Neill is so mean in this movie.
You know what I love, though, about it is he always still really cares about his
granddaughter.
Niece.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I don't know why.
So I like that was still there, at least.
Yes. And, like, and I just... It's got all of your sports things you want to have happen. I don't think it's as, like... emotionally, like, you're gonna cry watching it as something like Remember the Titans. Like, it definitely doesn't do that. But it's just, again, it gives you all of that, like, kind of sweet feel. And it's, it's fun to see, like, all of these kids kind of get involved in sports in ways that they probably wouldn't. I don't know, I love them. Although the snot bubble scene used to really gross me out as a kid. I did not love that.
Movie is 80% mental, 30% physical. Got some good quote lines. I like, my favorite is I always think about this when I'm watching one of my teams and they're playing terrible, when they gain a yard and the entire parents all go crazy. They're like, we gained a yard! And everybody goes crazy. I always think that's all yell that out a lot of times when our team's doing terrible, but they have one good play.
That's why you do that?
Yeah.
I don't know why I never connected that's why you do that. Yeah, I just love it. And again, like, I think it really comes down to me, like, Rick Moranis and the character of Icebox. And obviously I grew up in a Giants household.
And
so
what's the big play?
The annexation of Puerto Rico.
Gotta love it.
And I, again, like, very little about sports growing up, but I could have told you that at any point in my life, like, what the big play was. It's a really fun movie. And again, like, kind of scrappy underdog stories always play really well with me.
Excellent.
So what is your number 2?
And Little Giants is up there with me. I like that. I don't know if it would have been my top 5, but... so my next one actually could have been my number 1. I ended up putting it number 2 because you're going to come at me with an argument, and I'm going to have a hard time defending mine against the argument.
Oh, I'm curious here.
But it is more of the downtrodden film. It is definitely your more sullen sports film. But I am going to go with Friday Night Lights.
Oh, great pick.
Yeah.
Great pick.
Film about it's a true life story about the 1988 Odessa, Texas football team. Oh my God, that movie to me that is probably to me the best made football film. One of, if not the best. It is, anybody that's seen it, it is more sullen. It is sad. Much different than what we were just talking about with Varsity Blues.
I will say, like, the representation of Texas football in your number 1 pick versus your number 2 pick.
Right.
Like, I think it's number 1. Your number 1 pick is what you want Texas football to be, but it's more like number 2.
So it's based off the book, which was about the 1988 season. And I know that there's some things with the story that now is a little bit, question. So we're going to talk, talking specifically about the film. It's just, you have Billy Bob Thornton as Coach Gaines. And to me, again, just that coach that I want to follow. I love him in this film because he's not over the top rowdy. Like, he is just very stern, wants the best for his team, trying to find the best way through this season. And then you just start to care about all of these characters, and the kids and what they go through from, the quarterback to the running back to, and Boobie Miles and what he goes through with his injury and the heartbreak of, like, what he thought he was going to have to losing that and the linebacker. It's just, and you get to, the big game. And like I said, there's going to be spoilers. This movie doesn't end happy. It ends very sadly because they do not win the game. They have the big comeback. You think they're going to win, but then, they end up not. And it's like, these kids are one kid's abused. One kid's, got an injury that's going to end his career when he thought he would be a a pro player. And just all these kids and what they went through in their personal lives. And it's just that movie. And then you have that score throughout the entire film.
Which becomes everyone's score for when they think about high school now.
Yeah,
because it just makes you so nostalgic. It's like an instant nostalgia.
Listen, Peter Berg, who directed this, is a funny director to me because he's not the type, he generally doesn't make type of films or in the way that I would normally attract to, but for some reason I like his movies. I
actually get what you're saying because when you list them out, they aren't, I think, the movies that you readily go for, but they seem to just kind of sing, because he does have I think he has a way of telling those stories. He's very good with character development, and he makes you very immediately attached to people. And Friday Night Lights is obviously a great example of that, because I think there's an authenticity to how Peter Berg puts you inside of story that I think is really important. Because I don't think he wants to make anything glossy. When you're watching Friday Night Lights, you feel like you're watching an actual football program, and you feel like I am within the space of what unfortunately teenagers go through. I am in the space of those pressures, the kind of the hardships of, unfortunately not everyone's home life is stable, and that sometimes these programs are the only thing that provide the stability that a kid needs, and why these things are why extracurriculars are so important. Yeah. And Friday Night Lights does such an amazing job at that. And it's not an easy movie.
No.
And I think I hadn't seen the film until we had already started watching Friday Night Lights, the TV show, which is a very different, and we love Friday Night Lights.
Absolutely, and this is where I knew some argument would be made.
But here's the thing.
Because there's an argument to be made that the TV show is better.
Yes, but I'm actually going to say where I think the film is better is, again, it kind of comes down to that authenticity factor. There is something about Billy Bob Thornton's speech about perfection.
I want to read it because that was something I had here.
It makes me want to cry.
It is one of my all-time sports moment because if you haven't seen it, or those that you just need that reminder, they're down big at halftime in the state championship game, and it doesn't look like we're going to do, and he's just trying to rally the team and just talk to them about this, how they've gotten to this point. And he just gives this speech, this quote, and I just love it. I'm taking this part of the podcast to read it because it's just one of my favorite, and it literally gets me emotional when I hear it. If I do a pump-up montage video for whatever thing, that is. And it's, being perfect is not about scoreboard out there. It's about winning. Or excuse me, it's not about winning. It's about you and your relationship with yourself, your family, and your friends. Being perfect is about being able to look your friends in the eye and know that you didn't let them down because you told them the truth. And the truth is you did everything you could. There wasn't one more thing you could have done. Can you live in that moment as best you can, with clear eyes and love in your heart, with joy in your heart? If you can do that, gentlemen, you're perfect.
Yeah, right. I want to cry.
Yeah.
I want to cry. And here's the thing. I actually, because I know we would talk about the TV show aspect of this, I don't even want to compare them. I think of them as two very because listen, Coach Taylor, clear eyes, full hearts.
Well, that's definitely you're taking.
Yes.
Coach Taylor's comes directly from that quote.
And Coach Taylor pretty much does that every episode. And Friday Night Lights, with the exception of season 2, which is garbage, but the rest of the show, particularly once Journey Smollett and Michael B. Jordan are part of the cast, the show is phenomenal. But this movie is really something. It's something special. It is not your easy feel-good sports movie, but it's probably the movie that I think can express the importance of the love of sport and the importance of passion in your sport.
Definitely. Sweet. So we're going with that.
That's your number one. It's not actually those points.
And I agree with you. We probably don't need to compare the TV show's amazing. You and I will, again, it's a TV show that if you don't love football, still watch it because it's
such an amazing show.
The football's such a secondary thing, and I think that's why they're very different because the TV show's fictional and this is at least based around reality, and so they're very different from that standpoint.
And great performances, and it doesn't shy away from the grit of the stuff that's in Friday Night Lights, the film.
I'm glad you said Journey Smollett because, again, I'm kind of, turning a little bit, but she's actually in a fairly enjoyable football film called Gridiron Gang, where she's with Dwayne Johnson, and she's great in it. Like she's always so good in everything she's in. But that's another little fun one to watch. Not on my list or anything, but just another side film that I think deserves a little more credit than I think it gets.
So I'm about to say my number 3, and it's going to really change the conversation.
We need to. We were a little too serious there.
We were serious. My number 3 is The Replacements. And I will not apologize for it.
No one should ever apologize for that.
The Washington Sentinels.
Yes.
It's Shane Falco.
He's got to be up there on your number 1 quarterbacks, maybe.
Well, for sure. I will. Yeah. I like him best as a quarterback when he's Johnny Utah.
I was going to ask you. That was a good question. I was going to say, Shane Falco or Johnny Utah? Who are you picking to win the game for you?
Johnny Utah. Because I don't know why. It's really weird. And now I saw The Replacements before I saw Point Break, but I would still say he's more convincing as a quarterback when he's Johnny Utah than when he's Shane Falco. I don't know why. It's just how I feel. I love this movie. I know it's so ridiculous. It's so absurd. It's as absurd as like Varsity Blues, if not even more so.
But this one's supposed to be.
Yes, it is supposed to be.
It is like a comedy.
Yes.
I mean, the movie's a comedy.
And it's great. Gene Hackman, as a coach in that, which is hilarious, just like, because obviously, like, the Hoosiers connection here makes that even, like, funnier.
And that would be Hackman's last film that he did, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my gosh, is that? You gotta fact check that, because I'm kind of curious. It's directed by Howard Deutsch, or Howie Deutsch, who directed The Great Outdoors and Some Kind of Wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know you love Some Kind of Wonderful.
My sister Jolene, huge Some Kind of Wonderful fan. Yeah.
So, I mean, so it's really, I always find it interesting looking at some of the filmography, because it's like when it's the film but it's not like the same as like those director kind of like, and I hate to say this, but almost like those brand name, like they're so iconic, everything they've directed. So I was like looking a little bit at the filmography to see, but The Replacements to me is just really funny. My favorite part of it is the kicker, because he's wiry. Like, nobody likes a quitter, Jimmy. Like, I find the movie very quotable, really fun. It has all the kind of like great like sports moments you want to have. It actually uses music, but it uses like modern music. Like, I think it deploys it in a really fun way. There's a nice like romance subplot to it. The movie, honestly, from a sports standpoint, it absolutely makes no sense. But
so cheesy.
It's so cheesy.
But it's awesome.
I'm literally picturing like Keanu Reeves' hair like flopping over to the one side as he's slow-mo running out to the field. Like, I don't care though. I love it.
I have to be honest though, and that's the fun thing about this movie is
we're gonna watch it after the podcast.
I don't know. Like, I have a lot of really good friends that are football fans, and I don't know any of them that don't like this movie. Like, we all just love this movie.
How do you not love this movie?
Jon Favreau in it, ridiculous.
Oh my gosh, Jon Favreau is in this.
He plays the police officer. He plays that, like, wild man.
Favreau Unhinged is my favorite kind of Favreau.
We've been talking a lot of Favreau lately.
We watch a lot of Dinner for Five. If you don't know, it was a TV show on IFC. So Favreau, like, now, is, becoming one of the biggest directors in the game.
Right, it's hard not to talk about him right now. Jon Favreau, who's just, exactly.
Saving Star Wars left and right. Like, not that it needed to be saved, but, really, honestly, uniting the fan base. And he, so he did this TV show where he would bring essentially, and it's very much a snapshot of the early 2000s. One, because we would stay up late watching IFC, so that's definitely a snapshot of the early 2000s.
I don't think we stayed up late. I think we came home from work that late.
Yeah, that's true. So we worked on a movie theater, and we'd come home and Dinner for Five would be on. Yeah. But it would be like, so one of the episodes, it was Jon Favreau, Kevin Smith, Ben Affleck, J.J. Abrams, Jennifer Garner, and Colin Farrell. If that's not, or maybe it wasn't J.J. Abrams.
That wasn't Abrams.
It was like some mixture like that. It's very much of its time. But anyways, we've been talking a lot about Jon Favreau lately, and he has these like really iconic side character moments.
He's chameleon-like, but he's always memorable.
Yes, he's always the part of the movie where you're like, I definitely remember that dude in the movie. Like, and for a while,
although I believe we started talking about Favreau with you going, oh my god, I forgot he was in that movie.
Oh my gosh, I really did do that. But I do remember his part in that movie. So that's my number 3. What is your number 3?
Moving on. So I'm going to go with one, weirdly, I don't think a lot of people remember for some reason, because it was huge when it came out. It's a film called The Program. It came out in the early 90s. And it is about a college football team, a fictional college football team, West Canaan. No, I'm sorry. That's Varsity Blues. Excuse me. I apologize.
West Canaan Coyotes.
The school the university for some reason is escaping me. But James Caan is the coach, and it's supposed to be your, like, kind of, like, look into a college football program, right? And so everything's pumped up to 11 with this movie because, you know, everything is the worst case scenario or best case scenario. You know, you have your Heisman Trophy winner who's got the alcoholic father, you know. You have, you know, the, you know, from the bad neighborhood, you know, running back, and then you have, like, you know, the steroid linebacker, like, all of these things that just happen throughout it. But then you have
the best study buddy in the world, Halle Berry.
You have Halle Berry. You can't, right? She has such a big character in this movie, but she's memorable because it's Halle Berry, of course.
Yeah.
So it's Christy Swanson's in this movie. So, I don't know. I mean, I was a young kid when I saw it. I was like 13, but I still enjoy it when I watch it. Like, again, it's not the best representation of, you know, what a program should be, like, again, but, like, just that kind of, like, just enjoyment of a sports movie, giving you what you want. Like, James Caan's so good in it. My brother took me to see it. We went to see it in the movie theater, and I remember just being in the theater, and I'm just entranced on it. You know, it was one of the better on-the-field football films that I had seen at that point. Like I said, it's not going to be for everybody. There's a couple of scenes in it that are, like, very, you know, not, you don't want to see. But it's...
Well, and I think, you know, when you have sports movies, I think at different times try to, like, encapsulate, like, what would have been maybe problems or problematic natures of programs. Like, you know, what are the things that people kind of worry about with sports, or, like, how are sports outlets, or, like, what are kind of the archetypes of people that we kind of expect to be on a team, because then we feel like that helps us frame the narrative better if those, like, archetypes are there, because we know where to be invested and, like, what those stories are instantly. So it's kind of those easy way outs, but, like, you know, and I think that's the thing. If you can have authentic feeling scenes, like you're saying, best on the field stuff, and a good coach makes a sports movie.
I played, you know, I played 1 year of 8th grade football when I was in 7th grade. I weighed 80 pounds, so, like, I know about football.
You do, yes.
I know about it.
That's clearly the pedigree we're looking for.
My claims to fame were we played, I was going to quit the team, and they told my dad that if I quit, we didn't have enough players, so the whole team had to fold. So I had to play, even though I was like, because what happened was, as my friends would probably be laughing right now, I was too old to play on the 7th grade team, so I had to play on the 8th grade team, and I, like, at the time, I only weighed, like, 80 pounds, even though that's about the weight of my foot right now, but, like, so I ended up playing. I played receiver, never had one pass thrown at me, and got...
I think that's, like, the antithesis of what a receiver is supposed to
hit twice where I flew off the ground, and, like, those are my highlights.
So, I mean, guys, he knows sports.
I know sports. So, saying that, I don't know exactly if this is the most accurate depiction of a college program, but it feels authentic.
It felt authentic to you when you saw you felt like you were watching football. Yeah, that's fair. So, speaking of college football programs, I'm going to go with my number 4 pick.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is an iconic, and I have...
Oh, gosh. I know. I'm surprised this isn't higher on your list before you go with it, but go.
Honestly, I have to... even when I was, like, writing it down to prepare for this, I was just like, this really should be number 2. So that is the classic 1993 Rudy.
Rudy!
I mean, Rudy's okay, again, not phenomenally accurate.
Who cares?
Who cares? It's a great sports movie. I don't care if it's accurate. I actually... a friend of mine in high school, her mom went to school with Rudy and knew Rudy. This is the first time you're hearing this information.
No, it just was very Spaceballs.
What does that make us? Absolutely nothing. And told stories about it, like about that time at Notre Dame. And so I grew up a big fan of Notre Dame. I just love, like, kind of the fighting Irish culture, and, like, and honestly, you'll never visit a more beautiful campus than the University of Notre Dame. It is something special. It's in South Bend, Indiana. There's nothing else around it. You fly into the tiniest of tiny airports. It's actually kind of terrifying. But it's an amazing, when you're in when you're on that campus, it is hard not to get caught up in it. The grotto, the touchdown Jesus, that's what they call it. So
I'm with you.
The stadium, the bookstore is one of the most beautiful bookstores you'll ever go into in your life. The entirety of the campus feels as steeped in history as it is. And so, the movie Rudy feels very nostalgic for that. Again, obviously, I like a scrappy underdog story. I like anything, obviously, as we now know, with Jon Favreau.
Very memorable.
And it's honestly, it's one of those stories that you like seeing the triumph of that moment. You like getting to see this character who you feel like is as downtrodden as they come, can't even get into Notre Dame at first, like not accepted in the program, works his, butt off to finally get on the field, and he gets to have that moment. And it's again, what sports movies can do at their best is make you feel the possibilities of anything that you want to do. And Rudy does that. Rudy makes you feel
well
like...
Said.
Thank
well
you.
said.
Thank you. Can I tell you? Felt good about it.
You felt good. I like it. No, I can't argue. Like, you talked about how, like, there's, it may not be the exact... And I'm with you. Who cares? Like, because this movie, this is what you want to see. You don't want to see the real story. No. You want to see this person went through hell but kept working. We want that underdog story.
And it's such a great underdog story, and Sean Astin does a brilliant job at it.
Everything builds to the last few minutes of that film where that one play, you just are...
Rudy.
I mean, but it leads up to them putting the jerseys. Like,
what are you doing?
Who cares if it's bullshit? That's what I want to see there.
I have
you
chills.
Get goosebumps.
I have chills.
You just, and like, us that have nieces and nephews so in sports, like that's what you dream about, right?
Yeah, you
this
want them
underdog
to have
that you fight for everything and you scrap for everything and you get those big moments. So yeah, Rudy,
number 4.
awesome.
That's the guy who directed Hoosiers. Come on.
Let's talk. Do you want to talk more Gene Hackman? All day here talking about Gene Hackman.
We're going to have a Gene Hackman episode. All right, what's your number 4?
My number 4, I'm going to go through this quickly because this is going to be the, solemn moment of the podcast. It's Invincible. Mark Wahlberg, he plays he ends up walking on. It's kind of fun, go with that compared to Rudy because it's essentially the same type of thing, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
The bartender that has a walk on for the Philadelphia Eagles, true story, gets to play for them. Vince Papale. The movie's got some of the worst football scenes I've ever seen, but it's that Disney aspect of it that it's just about building up a hero, the underdog to get there. Sentimentally, it's an Eagles movie and happened to be the last movie I got to see with my dad in the theaters, and the last movie him and I watched together. We had seen it the Wednesday before he ended up passing away, so it will always have this special place in my heart, no matter anything else about the film, that it's just that movie connects with me, and it will always connect me. It's the Eagles in that moment, and and I always have this funny story about that, is there was another movie my dad had really wanted to see. It hadn't come out yet, but we're sitting in the movie theater. I'd invited him to go see them because we'd go see the movies once a month, and he came. We got there. We're sitting in the movie theater, and the trailer for this other movie comes on, and my dad's got this confused face on. And I look at him like, oh, don't you? I thought you wanted to see it. He goes, I do. I goes, I just thought that's what we were watching today.
Really funny.
I was like, no, this is the Eagles. He goes, oh, no, I want to see this too. So, and we both enjoyed it. It's just a good, fun movie. It's just, feel-good film.
And I think anyone can appreciate it, but I think if you're an Eagles fan, you can have a whole nother layer, because there is a culture, and there is a love, and there's a scrappiness to being a Philadelphian and to being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and it's. My
mom always called them the Beagles.
I know your mom called them the Beagles. I was doing because Elizabeth Banks in the movie is a Giants fan, and she says, "Tell me about your beloved Eagles."
Yes.
So no, and again, I think that movie is actually more about what it means for the city of Philadelphia to kind of, again, those
they love
stories.
that blue collar. I mean, who cares if the guy played 2 plays?
It doesn't matter. It's a fun movie. And again, I think
he's a Philly icon.
Yeah, and it's a really fun movie about.
Mark Wahlberg's not always my favorite, but I enjoy him in this.
He's really fun in it.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah.
What about you?
All right, so my number 5.
This is your number 5, yes.
It's a weird one to end on, because I feel like my reasons for liking this movie as a football movie are going to be so surface. It's the movie Leatherheads, directed by George Clooney. If you don't know, I love vintage culture. It's set in the 1920s. It's very much we got a football game here. It's very much, I don't know how great of a sports movie it is, but it's meant to be like a farcical look at like 1920s football. The term being leatherheads because the helmets used to be made out of leather. It's Renee Zellweger, John Krasinski, George Clooney. And I mean, like, I love George Clooney in anything. He's one of those Hollywood actors that looks like you can drop him in any time period and it works. He's super, super charming in it. It's a fun sports movie. It's a funny sports movie. It's a lot more about the romance. I like the time period it's set in. So it's set in 1925. The costumery is really fun. The kind of atmosphere around it, kind of the ridiculousness of like what football back then looked like. Right. So honestly, it's just, to me, it's a really fun. I think, I wouldn't say necessarily underrated, but I think it's pretty overlooked a lot of the time.
It's very overlooked, and I agree with you. It's a fun movie, and it was funny because Krasinski was very still fresh at that point, and Clooney was at the top, so it was a weird pairing at the moment. Like, now Krasinski's huge, but because
Krasinski's played as like the heartthrob in it, but what's funny about that is that's not who now, if you think about Krasinski now, you'd be like, of course Krasinski looks like the heartthrob football player. He's gorgeous, but like,
good looking man.
Listen, I see you when we're watching Jack Ryan. Yes. But it's Krasinski back then. You have to think this is 2008, so it's honestly, to me, it's a fun movie, and like he kind of has this, golly gee kind of like vibe about him.
I like your list. Your list feels very you. Everything I could have probably predicted. Leatherheads threw me off a little bit, but I told it once you said it. It totally makes sense. Yes. It's completely your era of wanting to film. Yeah, I like it.
What's your number 5?
So I'm going to cheat, as always. I'm going to go the Patriots Belichick style and cheat a little bit here and get my little extra edge and give you...
So are you deflating your list and making it smaller?
Nice. I'm going to give you 2 quick. I won't talk about them too deeply because they're very surface level films. It's just ones that I like. Necessary Roughness.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That is kind of like the college version of The Replacements, right? Yeah. Scott Bakula plays... I had to look this up.
Joni Chachi.
Scott... What?
Scott Bakula.
What?
He's not Chachi. Oh, my God.
Scott Baio? Did you just get Scott Baio and Scott Bakula?
Uma Oprah.
Charles in Charge is leaping from one body, trying to get right when it's wrong. Okay, we've gone off the rails here.
Oh my God!
We went out of bounds. All right, so Necessary Roughness, Scott Bakula, who I used to think felt like such the old quarterback in this movie, and I just looked it up. He's 34 years old, and I went, oh, that makes me feel bad. But you got Sinbad, hilarious. That's right, I said Sinbad. Jason Bateman during his funny, like, kind of post-Hogan's Family, but before the, Arrested Development years, obviously. It's just a goofy movie, but it makes me laugh. Love it. And the other one is a great... we were just talking about romantic comedies this week. We did the show for Steel Stacks, and I feel like this could be on a great romantic comedy list. Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
Love Lucas. Corey Haim.
Throw it to Lucas.
Yes. I mean, you got Cary Green.
Love Cary Green.
Love Cary Green. Lucas, again, you just want to root for Lucas through this whole movie. And, like, you do. And, like, he's such a lovable kid. And you just, Winona Ryder sees, what's great in him. And I just really like it. And, what I love about this film, though, is it doesn't work out, right? Like, no. You have your big sports moment, you think Lucas is going to pull off the play, and then you have this hilarious scene of, don't throw it to Lucas, throw it to Lucas, yeah. Don't throw it to Bly. And he gets it, and you're like, yeah, and then all of a sudden everything just goes wrong. And it just ends with this really sad moment, kind of, and then we build back to it, but he doesn't get the girl, he doesn't get the big sports moment, but he still becomes the hero, and is still loved. And so I love Lucas, it makes me happy.
No, I like your reasonings for that, and I'm glad we're ending in a space where nothing works out at the end, and it's Scott Bakula, Scott Baio confusion.
Scott Bakula, Scott Baio. Yeah. That will be the forever debate going on. So that's our big list. I just a couple of movies that we have to talk about here in overtime quick.
Go ahead.
Because here's the thing. Anybody that's going to listen to this list is going to go, dude, you guys missed some major movies. So
for sure.
All the credit to Any Given Sunday. It's huge.
Yeah.
Oliver Stone. The NFL hated it because it just makes professional football look like the worst. And it's Oliver Stone. It's over the top.
Yes.
But if you're a football fan, you have to at some point watch any given
It's a
Sunday.
peek behind the curtain.
The Longest Yard, Burt Reynolds version.
Yes. Yeah.
Listen, I was so mad with the remake with Adam Sandler because I think Adam Sandler does really good films, but then he just has to put sometimes this goofiness in, and that was the problem with The Longest Yard.
All right. At a point in his life, Adam Sandler did really good
Well,
films.
he can. Let's say that. He
He
just
has
did
the
Uncut
ability.
Gems, which people
Oh,
love.
okay, right,
So,
that's fair.
but Burt Reynolds' Longest Yard, Brian's song is probably the biggest all-time football movie, maybe sports movie.
Would you say if someone hadn't seen it, that's a how could you?
I don't know. Audience, you let us know. Is
Yeah, let
Brian's
us know in the
song
comments.
a how could you? I've seen it. I loved it. But it's a movie of the week. It was not a release, so does that count as a? I don't know. But
I think it does, and the problem is
could
like
be up
I'm
there.
asking because I haven't seen it, and I know it's a big football movie.
So those are some big ones, and then obviously ones that were out there. Draft Day, We Are Marshall, The Water Boy gets up there. All the Right Moves, if you pause it at the right moment.
Yep.
And then you also have like The Blind Side, which you and I are not fans of.
I'm not a fan of it, so
And I feel like that's that movie that has just fallen out of grace.
And as honestly, that's why I don't even want to like put it within the listing. We Are Marshall to me has one of my favorite like Matthew McConaughey moments in film. All
Yes.
Class.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that moment is everything.
That's
That movie's
movie,
hard.
It's a hard watch. It's sad. It doesn't have all the upbeats, and it's kind of not. I don't know. It misses something with it, but there are moments in it that are so good.
It's the redemptive power of sports
Yeah.
again, and that's kind of like something that I think can be a common theme again in sports movies. But the problem is it's a really hard thing it has to come back from in the beginning, and again, it's based on a true story. But it's definitely one to check out for sure.
So hopefully you guys, this inspires you to, watch some of these films, or let us know if you forgot any.
Yeah.
And let us know what your favorites were, right?
And let us know what you think of the Super Bowl this weekend and the weekend's performance, because that's, I think, the only part I'm really
All
excited
right,
for. at
here's
this
the
point.
part that's going to age badly by the
Yeah.
time anybody listens to this next week.
Yeah.
What's your prediction for the game?
Buccaneers are going to win.
You're going with the Buccaneers. Gonna give a score?
No.
All right.
Because I was not prepared for that, but I knew if you asked
I'm
me, I
going
was gonna say-
blowout for the Kansas City team. Andy Reid gets his second Super Bowl, and I'm gonna hate every moment of it.
That's the team we do
I
not
was so
speak of.
rooting for them last year, and now I can't root for them. But I think it's gonna be a slaughter. But never bet against Tom Brady, right?
Never get it
And then more importantly, will there be a good commercial?
Yes.
And how will the weekend be?
The weekend's going to be amazing, because the weekend has had Blinding Lights this year, which I think was the highlight of 2020 was that song. I am anticipating mostly the Michael B. Jordan Alexa ad. I want to see that ad. And it keeps getting teased, and now I want to see it in its full force, so I'm looking forward to it.
All right, excellent. Can't wait.
So if you are not already, please follow us on Instagram at How Could You Podcast, on Twitter at How Could You Pod. You can always send suggestions, thoughts, and comments to our email address, which is howcouldyoupodcast@gmail.com. If you have some time, whatever platform you listen to us, leave a review. Hopefully a favorable one. Hopefully that nothing has to do with my Baobacula confusion. It helps us out, helps to get the word out there about our podcast. We appreciate you listening. We're going to be back to our gaps in film knowledge next week with Pulp Fiction.
Excellent. I can't wait for that one. Thanks again for everybody listening. Make sure you look for Lauren's drink to pair with the podcast, or drink while you're watching the Super Bowl. Enjoy the game. If that's not your thing, enjoy Puppy Bowl, whatever CBS TV show's on. Whatever you actually, it's CBS actually hosting the game.
I think it's CBS, yeah.
All right. Scott Baio, Scott Bakula. Until next time, enjoy the Odyssey.